Today, I will show and tell you how to make white wine from Muscat grapes. It is already the end of September outside. It has gained enough sweetness, wasps have started to eat it, and it can be harvested now. Last time I made wine from Moldova grapes. The recipe for making white wine is very similar to making red wine, but there are some nuances. First of all, grapes should be harvested in clear, dry weather to ensure that the grapes are as sweet and dry as possible. This is the kind of grape. It is already ripe enough, has acquired a white hue, and has a slight white bloom on it. It should not be washed off because these are natural yeasts that will aid in the fermentation of the must. To prevent the wine from becoming overly acidic and smelling of mold, it is necessary to select all rotten, moldy berries and separate the berries from the bunches. We carefully pluck the berries, trying not to crush them prematurely. And we throw these stems aside. It is also necessary to remove all withered, rotten, and dried berries that can spoil the taste of the wine. They usually have such an unattractive appearance. Here, the grapes are cleaned of stems, rotten and decayed berries have been selected, and we can proceed to crushing them. Some winemakers press the juice at this stage and use the pomace for moonshine, but I will not do this because the skin contains a lot of beneficial substances and the wine will be healthier. To crush the grapes, you can use a special press or take a regular whisk, a high-speed drill, and crush the grapes. We pour the grapes into a tall container so that the splashes don't fly to the side. I use food-grade plastic containers. You should not use containers made of aluminum, galvanized, or rusting materials. We turn the drill to maximum speed and crush the grapes to a puree. The grapes are crushed. Now we just have to wait for the foam to rise. For a natural taste, I don't wash the grapes and use fermentation with natural yeasts. After that, we cover the container with cheesecloth or a loose lid and place it in a warm spot with a temperature of 20-25 degrees Celsius. I have a loose lid that allows air to pass around the edge of the lid. It should rise within a day. The cap should start active fermentation and gas release. If fermentation does not start, it is necessary to add some pomace from already fermented grapes. And now 3 days have passed, and it is urgent to press the must from the pomace. Unlike dark grape varieties, white grapes can impart bitterness from the seeds during prolonged fermentation of the pomace. It is visible that fermentation is still ongoing. The cap has risen, but it is not worth waiting for it to fall, because white grapes quickly start to impart bitterness from the seeds of the must. To press the must from the pomace, it is good to use a press, but if there is none, you will have to improvise. As always, I use a regular mesh bag from vegetables, which filters the pomace very well. If you do not have such an old bag, you can take regular gauze and use it. And the longest method of filtering pomace is using a mesh strainer for rinsing pasta. We place it on a bucket, pour the pomace in here, and the juice flows down. But this takes a long time because the mesh constantly gets clogged and you have to keep pressing and wiping to keep the mesh clean. I wash the vegetable mesh thoroughly beforehand to remove any dirt. Then you need to take a deep bowl, place the mesh in it, and use a container to scoop the pomace into it. Then we take another bowl, lift the bag with the pomace, and transfer it into it. Here the prepared must remains, which I will strain with this mesh to ensure that no small particles are left and to reduce the smell of yeast. If the mesh gets clogged and filtration is poor, we take a regular, clean spoon and wipe the mesh in a circular motion. The must has separated from the pomace and the solid residue needs to be added to the remaining pressing. I simply knock it off by tapping on the neck of the concrete for the pomace. Here the mesh is clean and ready again for filtering the bowl. While we were pressing everything, a sufficient amount of brown acid has already flowed into the second bowl. The amount of must we lift the mesh. It can be hung up to let the juice drain for a long time, but this takes a very long time. Or you can use an improvised press. We tightly screw the neck, place a stainless steel circle or wooden one on top, and it is necessary to press down hard with our whole body. Here, the juice has been released. We drain it and continue to press the pomace. If there is not enough weight for good pressing of the pomace, I use clean fishing rubber boots and will press with my body. We place the boots on the circle. A significant amount of grape juice was also discharged during this. After pressing, we carefully take off the boots and drain the finished juice. If you are going to make second wine or chacha from this pomace, then it is not necessary to press the pomace thoroughly because there will be juice left in it that will go into the second wine. However, if you are going to throw away the pomace, then it is necessary to press the must with maximum effort. I will make second wine from this pomace, so I am finishing the pressing. Now we pour the pomace into another container. It is clear that it is moderately dry. When pressed, a very small amount of must is released, which is normal. And now I want to make sweet wine, so I will add sugar in the amount of 100 grams per 1 liter of must. If you love dessert sweet wine, then you need to add up to 200 grams of sugar per 1 liter of wine. I am pouring 1 kilogram of sugar into 10 liters of must. And mix well. After the sugar has been added to the must, it is necessary to urgently isolate it from the oxygen in the air. Excess oxygen reaching the must can turn alcoholic fermentation into vinegar fermentation and completely spoil the product. For the normal functioning of wine yeast, the oxygen in the air that dissolved in the wine during its transfer will be sufficient. To transfer the must, a small vacuum must be created in the tube. Here, the wine is being poured under high pressure from a bucket into a bottle. The must should be poured into the bottle not to the top, but to about the edge of the narrowing. In this case, during vigorous fermentation and foam rising, it will not get into the glove and will not spoil the airlock. Take a rubber glove, a large needle, and make a small hole in one or several fingers. I will make a hole in one finger for now. Now, we put it on the neck of the bottle, and to prevent it from flying off in case of vigorous fermentation, I cut a rubber ring from the rubber glove to secure this glove. Now all that's left is to place the bottle in a warm place for the fermentation of the must. The temperature should be around 18 to 20 degrees Celsius. A higher temperature will increase the fermentation speed but worsen the wine quality, while a lower temperature can kill the wine yeast. If you want to make a lot of wine, you can make a second wine from this pomace. For this, you need to take as much water as the juice we extracted from this pomace. Then add sugar to this warm settled water at a rate of 200 grams of sugar per 1 liter of water. and mix well until completely dissolved. And we pour this sweet water back into the pomace. Mix well and place in a warm place for fermentation. Cover with a lid to prevent air access. Here, 10 days of wine fermentation have passed, and the glove has deflated. Let's see what happened to it. It is clear that a layer of sediment has formed. It is slightly layered, and bubbles are rising from it. This means that the sediment has started to sour. These are dead yeast cells, and they need to be removed urgently. Any container can be used for transferring the wine, except for aluminum and galvanized ones. I use a rubber straw that is 1.5 meters long. It is the most convenient, with a diameter of 1 centimeter. Now the beer is on. This is good aeration, as oxygen is supplied here, which is necessary for the survival of the remaining yeast. In the end, a small layer of wine remained over the sediment. It can be poured into a smaller container, such as a 3-liter bottle, instead of being discarded. And at the same time, a certain amount of wine will still appear on top, while the sediment will be at the bottom. After that, it is necessary to taste the wine. If there is not enough sugar, add 50 grams per 1 liter of wine. A bit sour, I will add sugar. I add half a kilogram of sugar to 10 liters of wine and mix it well. After adding sugar, the wine became semi-sweet. I use 20-liter bottles because they are the most convenient. Now the fermentation will be quiet, so it is necessary to pour it up to the neck to prevent souring. And again we cover the bottle with an airlock or a glove to prevent air oxygen from reaching the wine. Here, 10 days have passed, and the glove has deflated again, which means it is necessary to transfer the wine from the sediment. The wine has become much clearer, and the sediment at the bottom is already in small amounts. But if we leave it, the wine will absorb the smell from the sediment, and its quality will deteriorate. The clarity of the wine is already much better. Small bubbles are forming, which means fermentation is not yet finished. This is the wine. You can see that it already has good clarity, but it is not fully clarified yet. The wine must be poured strictly up to the cap. If you are a little short, you need to use another bottle to ensure there is no air, and the wine does not turn sour. Now we cover it again with an airlock and place it in a warm place for another 10 days for fermentation and settling. And now it's already December 29th on the calendar, and we can check how the white grape wine has settled. The last time I transferred it to buckets, there was almost no sediment. Let's check its clarity and taste now. The wine has become almost clear, and it can be placed for settling in the cellar. The wine tastes semi-sweet, and no more sugar needs to be added. Now it remains to place the wine in the cellar for about 3 months, so that the tartar settles completely, and this wine can be consumed in limited quantities.